Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of the Middle West podcast. I'm your host, Taqib Musa. We're in Manchester today. I'm joined by my co-host, Abdul Samir.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
And we're joined by a very special guest, ex-Lord Mayor of Manchester, current MP for the Manchester Gorton area, and mashallah tied into so many different projects, including this one at Khizra Mosque. Afzal Khan MP, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Well, good to be here. It's good to experience this.
Yeah, we're kind of a work in progress. We've got some video, some mics, and we've had some technical issues this morning.
Yeah, but all is good, and I think all of us will be on our best behaviour because of the guest, esteemed guest.
Yeah.
So
don't let me hold you back.
So we're not going to be. I hope no more jokes, Taqib, about many things, but that's fine.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So what we usually
I want to hear your jokes. Come on.
We'll probably get into it. We've had a few kind of people from politics. So we had Muhammad Amin on recently,
yes.
To talk about his experiences with the Conservative Party, as well as definitions of Islamophobia and things like that. But we'll get into it.
Okay.
What we want to start off with is you were born in Jalem,
Yep.
and you moved to the UK, and then through various things you ended up as Lord Mayor of Manchester. So can you tell us a bit about your background? How did it happen? When did you emigrate to the UK, and what kind of drove you to kind of achieve what you did?
Okay. Well, you're right. I was born in Jalem. At about age 11 or so, I came to the UK. I was adopted by my uncle. So it's through adoption that I came to the UK. Went to secondary school, missed part of that, and then at 16 left school, and usually make a joke. And that is, I left school with 9 no levels.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't even sit any exams, never mind passing any.
I think for reference, for all the young folks, O levels were a thing back in the day.
Yeah.
Do you know what O levels are?
I know what O levels are.
Yeah, just making sure.
Just because I was born outside, they make because I did my GCSEs outside.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
At the time, you had GCSEs as well and O levels. So the O levels was sort of old, and GCSEs were coming in.
Okay.
So its measurement was how many O levels have you done, and you're expected to do about 4 or 5 at least, and 9 is good.
Yeah.
So when I said 9 no levels,
yeah, which is fair enough. Well, nobody can say you got bad grades because you didn't get.
Yeah, and then my first job was in a mill, cotton mill. Again, not many around these days. I did a few years on there, and then lots of other jobs.
So this is around what, 60s, 70s?
No, I came here 71.
Okay.
So you're talking about.
Should have said 70s, 80s. Then.
Yeah. I'm not that old, you know.
I have not seen a single white hair, so it's not old.
Mashallah, 21 yet. Yeah, yeah. I then did lots of different jobs, and this process of different jobs and studying which was a combination I did. I realized after working about 3 years or so in the Smith & Nephew mill that actually I needed to do something more. I didn't want to spend my life working in a mill. So that bit was easy. But the next bit, what you're going to do and how, and it's not easy when you have 9 no levels. So my first conclusion was I actually need to study. So I studied as a mature student. So I used to work, save up, do 1 level and then the next level, keep going like that. I ended up doing about a dozen or so different jobs, including police.
So you were doing a degree part-time?
No, I studied went back to O levels, A levels.
And then all the way up, okay.
Yeah. I went through the whole process.
So from 9 no levels to...
Oh, then I managed to get to 9 O levels. I did. Then I managed to get 3 A levels as well.
Alhamdulillah.
And then I did... from police, it took me next level to law. So I did a law in Manchester, and then I got a job in a law firm. I worked, qualified, and then became a partner in the same law firm. And then next change came, and that was basically politics.
So your A-levels, they were kind of standard, was it?
Yeah, it was basically more maths.
Okay, so maths, physics, kind of that.
Yeah, maths, physics, you got it right. I did Urdu as well.
Oh, nice.
I did further maths as well.
Nice. So this is very, you're
typical.
setting up to be an engineer.
Yeah, very good.
Were you always interested in politics, or?
No, not at all. Not at all. My initial idea was physics. because I wanted to be a nuclear physicist.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
And then basically from there, I left and went into the police. And from police, I did the law. And from law, it came the politics.
So
And-
you were a police officer in the 80s.
Yeah.
Was this a good time for a brown guy to be in the police, wasn't it?
Very few at the time.
Yeah.
But I think I was clear in my head that we need to be involved with different sectors, different parts of the work areas. And police was an important one in that sense. Not many were involved. There was a whole issue of racism and
Yeah. Yeah,
racism in the police, etc.
Because in the 70s, from what I'm told, that police were quite packy bashing, and that was still very much a thing.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I did about 3 years. And if I'm honest, it wasn't too bad, both from the public and within the institution. And I then conclude that this is actually a complex subject, racism, and it operates in different ways. And whilst there is from the other side, there is also your side.
Okay.
And that your side can make a difference as well.
Yeah.
You can help to prevent things as well. You can help to get on with things as well. You can turn the incidents into a positive incident. So it's how you react also has a bearing.
Okay, so kind of don't let it bring you down, turn the other cheek.
Okay. I think if you are an open person and you are reaching out, you'll break those barriers.
Okay,
So
fair
people may have issues and concerns, and then they'll basically move to a level saying, "Oh, you are all right." Somehow others are not all right. The real
You're
truth,
one of the good ones.
yeah. The truth really is, it's you who just learned that I'm all right. Others are all right as well because you've interacted with me.
Okay.
If you bother to interact with others, you'll find they're all right as well. So it's these things as well. And then there's the subtleties that you can have. And I usually give an example from the police. I used to have an officer. Now, he was a rude officer. And I often used to think, when you pair up and do the work, I hate to meet this guy as a public. Because he basically was rude. No, he was rude with everyone.
And so I guess
So
wasn't
if you come across him, you wouldn't know this side of him that actually he's bad. He's bad with everyone.
So
he's not being bad with you because you're a black or you're a Muslim or you're X, Y, Z. Yeah, he is bad.
But isn't that kind of, I guess, a little bit of gaslighting / denying that the issue exists? Because there are genuinely people who are discriminatory in their attitude or something like that.
Yeah, I've never said that it doesn't exist. I mean, I accept that.
Yeah.
I'm only trying to explain how in those days when there was this rife, in a sense, and yet I didn't experience too much. So what is the explanation? Yeah.
And I guess
in that there are lessons.
And I guess most people are living day to day and kind of Do you think the Muslim community need to do more of kind of the getting on with it, the integrating? Because, for example, like Cheetham Hill, or actually like in Birmingham, we have quite a few areas which are possibly very high concentrations of Muslim population, and then a lot of the Muslims don't like to go out there.
Yeah. Well, look, first of all, again, this is a complex in here, how it happens, what is known as white flight.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen that we just get concentrated. There is a sort of pattern where any immigrant community sort of goes through, that you come in to a new area and then you'll usually will come into an area which is a cheap area because your own financial circumstances are such, and then things start happening. And then there's the other side of it as well. For certain things to survive economically, there has to be a certain amount of those shops, and then with the shops, the people who will do the customers, for those shops to survive. So that sort of thing sort of plays into developing this sort of areas. And then there is the people who are others who already settled there. They may have been there longer and they start moving out, and there may be those who don't like that change, and then they move out. So this cumulative effect then concentrates one particular community in one area.
Yeah.
So there is an explanation why it happens and how it happens, and we shouldn't treat it as though it somehow is bad. What key point I would say is how the institutions, the facilities, the governments are operating, making sure that there's a fairness across the board. There's fairness in providing opportunities, and that discriminatory elements that we need to be focusing on, and that shouldn't take place. We shouldn't be too hooked if there's a percentage more of one particular community here and one more here. So what?
Yeah. I think it's one thing I personally felt back in my parents' days, back in the 80s and the 70s, was that because of, like, for example, the levels of racism that did exist, they kind of felt the need to kind of stick together, the basic kind of thing of, trying to have safety. And as a result, it kind of perhaps created the barriers to actually engage within the wider society, for example. Maybe one or two were courageous enough to kind of confront racism. People saying that, I would engage in society, I will get involved, and I don't really mind. So the thing is, do you sometimes feel like this whole victimization is sometimes taken to a level too far, whereby we stop ourselves from actually progressing as a community?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important point is understanding this complexity, and then knowing, for example, if you want a mosque institution to operate, well, it needs certain numbers. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, a mosque itself won't be viable. Yeah. If you want facilities where you can have a halal XYZ, well, you need certain number of customers. Mm-hmm. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is not to sort of become, in a way, totally isolated. Mm-hmm. Be aware of it, be more confident, and do the outreach work. And mosques like Hizra Mosque, I think, do a brilliant job. If you look at their activities, it tells you that actually it is operating simply not just a place of worship, which primarily it is, but also the other needs of the community and the wider community, because there has a community in this area in Cheethamil. There are so many different nationalities living here. Mm. So if the mosque can become the center of those activities, center of those needs of that community, center where you can come together and explore those challenges which you may have, then in a way you're not being isolated. Yeah, you in a way then be using your assets, your resources to bring people to you and provide the answers and solutions which are there in the society. And so we need to be thinking deeply as a Muslim community, what is it that we can do with our mosques, because we've got about 2,000. And that's a big number. Yeah? And that big number means we can do so much for the Muslim community to help them with the challenges which are there, help them with the developing of the leadership as well, help them to reach out as well. But equally, we reach out to bring non-Muslims close to us through the institution with various opportunities that we get. And by more we open that, more the barriers will be broken, and you won't end up what exactly goes on. This person walks across this through all the time, but across the road, but hasn't bothered crossing and looking actually, what is it? But once they come in, they realize, well,
it's not that bad.
Yeah, there's nothing unusual here. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, this bit they do quite well. This is really good. So they'll end up enriching themselves, which is great.
So with racism, I think there's a couple of things that are happening recently. The first is with kind of, as in the past 10 years, I guess, there's been an influx of Eastern European migrants. A lot of Muslim communities are doing the same, maybe sort of flight, or we're trying to isolate ourselves. And do you think there's a problem with racism within the Muslim community towards new immigrants?
I think there is. Look, we're also human, aren't we? We're not protected against this idea. But there are two important points to understand. I think one point is usually racism does exist in different types of people, different sectors, communities, etc. But the most dangerous one is those who are in power. Because those who are in power actually can do the impact on the society far more than those who are not in power. Yeah. So we need to be clear on that front, that our energies needs to be focused on those in power, that they're not being racist.
So I guess one of the examples of this is, this whole Duke and Duchess of Sussex debacle, where the media has been what a lot of people perceive to be quite racist. And what do you think about that?
Let me finish the point I was making.
Sorry.
That's fine. And at that point, I think ultimately the other side is that doesn't mean it's a license for us or for anyone else to be racist. So as an individual level, we need to be able to actually be self-critical as well and to challenge it. I think one of the things you will find is how do, say, Asian Muslims treat black Muslims?
Yeah.
That's very good. That's a very good point.
And why? I mean, if you look at the Islamic perspective, it's just not allowed. And if you look at the time of the Prophet, when someone was abusive to Sayyidina Bilal, and how he was strongly rebuked, told off by the Prophet, and this guy then how he apologized.
Abdullah al-Ghafari, even though he was a senior companion.
Absolutely, but how he then felt about it and how he corrected himself and how he reached out to Bilal Ta'ala. They're all good examples that, look, these things can happen, but really how we address this is important. So, in a nutshell, my argument in here is that, first of all, there should be zero tolerance to any form of racism, any form of discrimination. And we should actually focus our energies to make sure that the systems, the institutions, the governments actually are not operating, so that because this reinforces this problem. And then wherever it's happening individual level, we should challenge that as well.
I think.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry. I think there's two factors when it comes to racism that kind of is something which is quite common. I think first and foremost, you see that people are often not are afraid of new things, generally speaking. So
fear the unknown.
Fear of the unknown. So when something new comes in, what do we do? Do we go crazy? Do we protect ourselves? What do we do? We don't know. Yeah. And I think that's when education, as you mentioned, is the perfect solution for that, where we kind of engage with each other, where we open our arms to each other as different communities and kind of get rid of that aspect of it. I think sometimes the second aspect of it is often not related to economy. And I think often migrants are used as scapegoats for that. Whereas, for example, people are feeling like there are certain opportunities that are being taken away from them ever since these migrants have come over, for example, or they feel the need to kind of, and I feel like it's a lot of times politicians take advantage of that, and especially when you look at the current climate. I guess kind of going back onto your own kind of personal trajectory of like your career progression, what kind of made you want to kind of go away from law and actually go into politics, and actually kind of wanting to kind of have this desire of, working for a more kind of positive change?
Yeah. So on the change point of view, I suppose throughout my life, the change and progression has been happening. So when I was very young, I would say around 2021, this serious process of changing started happening in myself, inner self. Mm-hmm. As the Quran says, the inner change has to happen before the exterior change happens. So I went through that phase. And then about 21, I think I was absolutely clear, sort of, what is it? And the question fundamentally is, we only have one life here on earth. And what is it that you want to achieve out of that life? It's I think, pretty serious question, which each of us really should ask, because you have this life on earth.
Yeah.
So if you don't bother asking and you go through the whole life, I think you may have missed something here. Yeah? So that question, I think I went through. And then, in a way, I became clear that one thing actually I wasn't interested in is being a millionaire. Mm-hmm. So very young, I became clear on this idea that I don't want to be a millionaire. Yeah, mm-hmm. I want a reasonable life. I want a good life. But then what I came down to is I want to serve people. So that element actually was dominant in my life, that serving of the others is key. And that actually comes from my faith. And I always share this. There are two sort of jewels from my faith which have actually driven me to this, where I am. Mm-hmm. And one is, best among humanity are those who bring benefit to others. Yeah, the saying of the Prophet.
Yeah.
So it's bringing benefit to others Other humanity is key. There's no discrimination in here, benefit to the Muslims or to one group or the other group. It's to the humanity idea. So that, I think, is quite a big idea, serving the others. And the other one, which actually most people probably don't think too much about, but is there. And what he said was that a person whose 2 days are the same is in a state of loss. Mm-hmm. This is very powerful, actually, idea. And this then brings you to the second most fundamental point in life, and that is time. Time doesn't stop for anyone. Time actually is ticking away.
Yeah.
So if you are not in a constant progress of being aware of this idea and trying to improve yourself, trying to make most of that opportunity of the time, you are in a loss. So these are the two big things, actually, which has been the pillars in my life. I've constantly worked to serve others, and I've constantly tried to improve myself. And this has been then taking me from one to the other to the next. Alhamdulillah, at the moment, I'm a shadow minister in foreign affairs. Yeah. I've been a shadow minister for the Home Office for Immigration. I've been a vice president of security and defense for the whole Europe. Now, these are lots of big things. And I never planned for these. Mm-hmm. It's not been the case that, I want to be this, yeah? I never planned to be an MP.
And so I guess that brings us back to when you left law and you joined, I believe it was the Labour Party.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you were you were an active part of the Labour Party. I've heard from a couple of other guys that actually I think my father-in-law said he first met you when you were campaigning for Labour and he was campaigning for Respect.
That's possible. Yeah, because I was in Labour long before Respect came along.
Yeah. So what made you choose Labour? Because again, this is early 90s. This is when Blairism is starting.
Yeah. I think there are two factors, really, which sort of pulled me. One was that I was involved with the Muslim community, like I said, from almost when I was 21.
Okay.
So many of these organizations you may see around, you'll see my hand somewhere in there. Yeah. Started with the UK Islamic Mission. I worked with them for many, many, many years. 8 years I served as a vice president nationally with them. Muslim Council of Britain. I was a founding member. I've been Assistant Secretary General. Young Muslim, I'm one of the founding members. I served in the Shura Islamic Society of Britain. Many other organizations you will see. Human Appeal International Charity.
Yeah.
I'm a founding trustee. So I've been engaged with that side of the community for a very long time.
Yeah.
But I was not engaged with politics. Mm. And this is the key change, I think, that happened. I realized that politics is actually important. Many people say, I'm not interested. And I find it astonishing, actually, of this statement. How can you say this when everything around you, is being controlled by politics?
Yeah.
How can you say you're not interested? Even if you're not interested, actually, they are influencing things.
But I guess a lot of people say that, politics is a dirty game and, you're unable to kind of say your opinion properly. I think...
Well, if you're not saying it, well, you're not doing anything, are you? You're letting others say it. How can that be right?
This brings me on nicely to... there's been a bit of a Twitter storm on your page in the past, I guess, week. About comments you made about, I think it was...
It's not the first one.
And there'll probably be more.
Yeah.
But I think that tweet is now gone. So you said human rights groups at Liberty UK Cage, Muslim Council have voiced grave concerns over the Prevent strategy and its seriously misleading guidance. Yeah. And then you said, to clarify, these organizations were described in the Metro as human rights groups. I don't endorse Cage.
Yeah.
Apologies for any confusion.
Yeah.
And then there's been a lot of... you've been attacked from both sides.
That's right.
Dissociating from Cage. Yeah. But then you've deleted the tweet, or is it...
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think it's deleted. Well, look, first thing to say is I don't manage everything on my social media.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's the one bit. The second bit about this controversy, I think the position is this. there are clearly different interests out there, each betting for their own bit.
Yeah.
And what is important to me is not to get distracted.
Yeah.
What's important is to remain focused on your message. So the key message in that tweet was actually about prevent,
Yeah.
not cage.
Yeah.
People may like cage, people may not like cage. So I wasn't interested in this distraction which was taking place with cage.
Yeah.
Because my message was nothing to do with cage, actually. It was to do with prevent.
Yeah.
I think most of the replies were actually that, why are you endorsing Cage? And then they
Yeah,
were
yeah, that's right. So for me, I felt, hold on, this is actually moving away from the center message which I'm interested in. So how do I shut this down?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is part of the ways you shut things down. Prevent is something which I'm interested in. I want to know what's happening. I've seen Prevent from more or less day one, how it's been evolving and how it's been operating, what impact it's been having, what may be the possible pluses, what may be the negatives. And every opportunity I've had, I have spoken out on Prevent. There are people who think Prevent should be abolished altogether, and there are people who think Prevent is the best thing after the slice of bread, But look, I think there are plus and minuses in there. And what is important is for the government to focus and look at independently Prevent, to see how much has it worked, what has been the pluses here, and what are the negatives. Because it's in everybody's interest that things work out. So I think that basically explains.
And do you think Prevent would have to be abolished completely, or do you think...
Well, my line is, it may well be that it has to be abolished. But before you get to that, what is important is there is a proper independent review of the whole thing. And those who do the review, they must be independent as well. Don't bring in a biased individual, like I have objection to what has happened here.
Yeah.
And then expect, because one of the tactics in political games is you already know the result you want. You bring in people who will give you that result. That is not independent.
Yeah.
That's not fair. It's not right. And this is where my objection on it is.
There's actually something that I recently studied in university when it comes to evidence-based policy making. So there's two types of kind of going on about trying to create evidence. The whole idea of evidence-based policy making is that you should base upon your policies upon what actually works. But the thing is, often not, it's misconstrued and usually used as a political tool to generate the evidence, because evidence is often not subjective or can be subjective.
Right.
And that's exactly what's happening over here. And to be honest, the one question which I wanted to ask you as well is that, I mean, you gave the example of people who, especially from the Muslim community, when they kind of show their disinterest in politics, they say, there's no point of getting involved in politics. And if you don't, the thing is, politics is life, essentially. It's what restricts your lifetime. It's where all the rules are generated. It's where everything happens. And the thing is, so myself and my background, I've mentioned this in the podcast a million times, in terms of I did my undergrad in engineering, and I kind of, now I'm going into policy work. I want to kind of get more involved into politics, inshallah. And the main reason being was because I feel like when you look at Prevent, for example, the fact that on the policy table itself, when it comes to where lawmakers are, there is not enough representation of Muslims, and there's not even enough representation of people of BME background.
So do you mean that in the bureocracy, or do you mean in the House of Commons? And
both.
Everything.
The both hold, actually, both sides.
Both within the civil servants as well as within a parliament.
Yeah.
And I feel like, for example, if there was enough representation back when, because Prevent was the manifestation of the counter-terrorism policy that started off, I think it was around in the Labour government around 2007 or 2008. Around that time was like the birth, I guess, of Prevent. And you just think that if, for example, we had the right people, like the people who are representing the communities properly in those rooms, helping creating these policies like Prevent wouldn't be what it is today. And perhaps this is like a question I'm thinking to myself, that maybe by Muslims getting involved and by people of color getting involved, we could have actually influenced these kind of policies. So I feel like so the question to you would probably be like, what would be the answer to those people who do say we shouldn't get involved, and why we should get involved? The second question is kind of about the backlash that you kind of faced. So naturally speaking, as you mentioned, that there are people who are going to kind of shut you down because they have their own interests in mind. So how do you make sure that you kind of put out those fires and carry on fighting for what you believe is right and what you believe is truth?
There's a lot there.
Sorry, so loaded. I know. That's one thing I do. I ask so many loaded questions.
No, that's fine. Probably half of it I'll forget, but I'll do what I can. Okay, you can bring me back again. Feel free.
That's fine.
So the first point I think is, look, if you're not playing football, you're not going to score a goal. Doesn't matter how good you are. So just talking from outside actually is not helpful. Just being an armchair critic doesn't actually help anything. So being engaged is the only choice we have. The next bit with the being engaged is, don't get too critical of your brother or sister. This husn-e-zan idea, thinking good wishes for others, is actually very important. Because you don't understand fully the complexities of the game on someone who's playing. It's all right to say, hit the six. But when you got a good bowler throwing the ball, it's not easy to hit a six. Yeah? So those who are in the game, they actually know better. You just outside trying to think you can do something better. It's only when you get into it, then you realize after 5 years, actually that person wasn't that bad. There are other complexities here. And the next point is, even when you get into politics and you're in there, you are sort of one piece, and there are many other pieces in there. And they also have their interests. So it's a long game in that sense as well. And the third point I would make here is, don't be too quick to judge things. People will get things wrong as well. Yeah? And if you start cutting them down, they will not grow. So when even they make mistake, take it easy. Help them. Yeah? So I think these are a few of the things. And the other mistake we often make is it's the classic sort of stuff you probably have come across as well. Between a reality, a life, and an ideal, there's always a gap. So don't, again, expect someone to be an ideal. Accept human. And even accept the idea that even in Qiyamah, it's going to be a maths. If you score 51%, you'll be a pass. Don't try to expect 100%. So why are you expecting it in this life?
But I guess this is the thing with an element of accountability, I guess, and a lot of people feel that. So, for example, I think you're in a very, good position in that you are already a frontbencher MP. And I guess that's one of the questions is, did you feel kind of less pressure but more helpless as a backbencher? A lot of people say that actually one of the reasons why they don't want to go into politics and go directly through to MP is because as a backbencher, even though you're there, even though you have a seat in the House of Commons, actually there's not that much you can do. And do you think that changed drastically when you became a frontbencher?
I think it's a plus and minus. At the heart of it is who you are and what is it that you want to do. Whilst there may be limitations both as a backbencher and as a frontbencher, and there may be different limitations, but there's so many other things you can do. So you can do those things. So let me give you an example which is irrelevant whether I'm a backbencher or a frontbencher.
Okay.
So, for example, I ran last year a leadership course for young people. I then selected some young people, took them through to give them a good understanding how city ticks.
Okay.
Gave them access to top leadership in Manchester City. Took them to ITV headquarters, gave them access to top people who make news, to see the back side of the news. We all see the front side of the news. But what is the back side? How news is actually done? How is it made? How it takes, to give them that understanding. I took them to the trade union to show how the trade union actually works in this society. I took them to the Supreme Court, London, gave them access to a Supreme Court judge to talk them through justice system, how it's operating. Then I took them to the Parliament, gave them access to the Prime Ministers, to Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell, the top leadership politically in here, and the Labour Party as well. To ask questions to them, to see, how decisions are being made when these challenges they face. How do they do it? Project for them to do as well. So went through all that. Now, this has got nothing to do with me being a front bench or back bench. I could do this. Yes, my passion. I wanted to develop leadership. I understand the importance of leadership. Yeah. So this is an example how you can make a difference. There are many other things happen. MCB. For example, they have many challenges, and they have many challenges with politically. Now, opening some of those doors is a role which helps. There are many our other charities, who do charity work, and they face various difficulties. Now, again, opening those doors. So it's not simply just at the front ideas. There are side ideas which can be done as well, and there are also a lot of help there for you as well. And how do you value when a young Muslim sees a Muslim on the front bench? The role model idea.
Yeah.
It's an amazing power, actually. Amazing way of inspiring young people. You can't even put a value on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how do you if you're not there, how are you going to provide that role models? To make sure they get this confidence that, yes, one of us from our community is there.
Yeah, I guess
I can be there as well. Yeah, and then you won't get to a position where a teacher says, "Oh, I don't think you can do it," because they won't listen to the teacher. Then, in that sense, there's a whole evidence where sort of teachers sort of underplay some of the BME communities. Yeah, they don't give them enough encouragement to aim high. Yeah, but if they can see themselves, people high from their own background, then it doesn't matter about the teacher. They can themselves observe that, and that is you cannot put a value, like I said. It's so powerful.
So I guess one of the questions is that now that, you're in a senior position in the Labour Party, one of the things that I guess your previous MP did, I think it was Gerald Kaufman, the late MP of your constituency, he was very vocal about his criticism of, for example, Israeli human rights abuses. And what we're seeing with the Labour leadership debate now is that all of the leaders seem to be kind of pandering to those pro-Israel lobbies. Do you think this is, firstly, do you think this is happening in the Labour Party, and do you think there's starting, especially in the leadership debates, there's starting to be a kind of a lean towards that? And what do you think your position is going to be? Do you think you'll be able to be as vocal and outspoken as Gerald was?
Look, first of all, I'd say Gerald was a pretty amazing MP, and he did really well. 47 years is a long time. He ended up being a father of the house.
Yeah,
that's great. On the question of Israel and Palestine, I think let me widen it up a little bit and say this, that there are many places in the world where there's real human rights abuses taking place. And irrespective which part of the world it is, we should have the guts to stand up and say all humans are equal. There should not be any human rights abuses taking place. And then the second is the reality checkpoint, and that is, the truth is, the world is not a fair place. There are countries who get away with more than others. And those who are good, decent people, whatever background they may have, whatever faith they may have, they will stand up, and you will see that this will carry on happening, whether it's Israel's abusing of the Palestinians, or whether that is in the Rohingya, or whether it's Kashmir, whether it's happening in Yemen. There are stuff, which is not nice what's happening, and we should speak out. I will always do that. I have not come into power or politics so that I am there for that reason. My whole reason of being is to serve. So I actually don't care whether I'm an MP I don't care if I'm a shadow front bench or a minister. But what I do care is serving. And I will do that.
But do you
and
think
I've done it in the past. I've done it as a European Member of Parliament. I had people criticizing me then as well. I have people criticizing me now. I'm anti-Semitic and all that stuff. Look, it's not true. I'm not. I've got nothing against Jewish community. I, in fact, have done so much work bridging between the Muslim and the Jewish community because I think we share so much with one another. But I have a difference with the Israeli government. I don't agree with what the Israeli government is doing to Palestinians.
Yeah.
So there's no compromise in that sense.
That's the point you made about double standards. So, for example, right now, it seems a lot of governments are reluctant to criticize China on Uyghur stuff, but they're happy to do something else. There's a lot of governments that are happy to criticize Myanmar on the Rohingya community, and even a lot of left-wing leaning people who won't criticize Assad for his human rights abuses, but they're happy to go after American hegemony.
All I can tell you is I've criticized India on Kashmir. I've criticized China and the Uyghurs. I've criticized Israel and the Palestinians. I've criticized the Saudis and UAEs and Yemen. And I've criticized Assad and even his father in Syria. So my track record speaks for itself.
We need to kind of, I guess, do it with all of them. I guess this is the next question coming to the Labour Party, which is we mentioned this a little bit about their in the 80s there was a lot of racism, but nowadays we feel there's a different sort of, you can say, a reincarnation or reigniting of xenophobia, racism, and I mean Labour Party did really bad in the last elections. Do you think that played a factor in what's happening? What do you think is fueling Brexit, or was it just that Labour Party didn't have a good enough Brexit position? Do you think the immigration factor, which you are the kind of part of the shadow cabinet for, do you think that was key in swinging this election towards the Tories?
I think, first of all, it's been a bad election for us, and I think not only bad for the Labour Party, but I think also for Britain. I think Labour policies were pretty good. In fact, they were too good, and we paid the price. I would sum it up like this.
What do you mean by too good?
Yeah, I'll sum it up now.
Okay.
Because it's a complex subject. I could spend a whole hour on talking about why the result has been like what it is. That I'll just say, look, it's been a bad result, and it's not good for Labour Party, it's not good for Britain. Yeah. So what are the three big lessons, which probably covers the 80% of what went wrong? And they are basically Brexit, there are policies, and there's Jeremy Corbyn. Brexit, I think, is probably the biggest. People were fed up. 3.5 years of uncertainty, things are not going anywhere. And the Tory party had a very good, simple message. It's already baked, it's ready to serve.
Yeah.
We were offering a complex idea, saying we'll get a better deal, we'll give it to the people, it's for you to decide whether to stay or to leave. And people thought we've had enough of this 3.5 years. We don't want this circle starting again. So basically they didn't buy it.
Yeah.
Sad. I think our offer was actually better for the country. But we have to respect the decision of the people. So that's the big one. Then I think it's the policy and Jeremy Corbyn, the other two big ones. The policies, I think if you look at all the policies the offer Labour made, every one of them has got merit, makes sense. They're worth something actually. They would make better for life for the people. But together, it was so good that people actually doubted that it's possible.
Okay.
So the credibility came into question rather than the policies. And then the third is Jeremy Corbyn. And the Jeremy Corbyn point again is, I believe he is a good person actually. He's got good values. He cares for the humanity. He cares for the British people. He wants a more fair society. He wants to see a peaceful world. All of these values, actually, nobody can disagree with. Any decent person will give ticks for this. But the problem I think he faced is that we have such a powerful media, and combined with the powerful vested interests. And they all came together because I think the mistake he made is he challenged the whole thing in one go. And the whole thing then came together to bring him down. And the power of the media and such a small number of hands actually helped to portray a sad place for us in Britain, that a good person who would you look at if you break it down would get ticks, was projected as a bad person, and a proven bad person was given tick as a good person. And that actually is bad for the society. When you cut down good, decent people, then you'll be left with bad people standing. And that's never good for the society.
Do you
and
think
this is where we ended up with these three things hitting Labour Party with the result we have of this government. And I think things will get worse for most people.
Do you think there was a personal problem? Do you think that maybe Corbyn should have stepped aside and let someone who was, I guess, better for the cameras, less easy to attack, take over?
Well, with hindsight, everything is good, looks good, But if you think about it from his perspective, someone who's been very sincere to what he stands for so long in all his life, and the guy had 2 mandates, more powerful than even Tony Blair had from the members. Why should he stand back? Now you can say, well, it would have been better. It would have been less punishing for himself. I mean, I actually sit back and think, what an incredible person he is. That the punishment he took throughout this period is incredible. So many times I worried about him, as one individual taking so much. How much can he take?
Did you guys see it coming, like the election loss? Or
for me personally, I suppose I didn't see it coming so badly.
Okay.
What I saw was a possible hung parliament or a small majority for the Conservative Party. So I saw that as the result.
But not such an overwhelming majority.
No. And I think at the heart of it, again, if you analyze it, probably what has happened is there was a large undecided coming throughout the election. And for me, the wishful probably thinking this is where it was, saying that, they can't fall on the Boris side because he's proven liar, he's just not. Yeah. There's so much against him, Whereas on the other side, you have Jeremy Corbyn, whatever they may say about him, the truth is, he just cares about people, he cares for fairness, he cares for peace, and that everybody likes. So ultimately, I felt that people would fall on this side. And what we saw on the election day is, no, actually, they fell on the other side. And we have the result we have.
What we're seeing with the leadership election, I guess there was a few things in Labour as well that, like Tom Watson stepping down, people said the inside of the party was very kind of swung apart.
There's been issues. And this goes back to the results. When he was elected, after 9 months after that, he was basically being challenged when he wasn't even given a fair chance. When you're elected with a mandate, party should line up behind you. They should say, right, we've had our democratic process, we've costed our vote, we may have not given you the vote, but you have won. We will now put all our energies behind you to make sure you succeed. And what we saw was many of the Labour MPs not doing that. Many of the senior people in the Labour Party saying, we're not going to serve under you. How loyal are you to the party? Never mind Jeremy, irrelevant. Jeremy put himself forward, members chose him.
Another thing which was quite interesting about this election, and as you said, the 3 kind of points. I think Brexit probably was like the biggest overarching thing, and some people were saying that, for example, especially up north, when you look at Labour heartland, where it's always been a stronghold, where those constituencies voted for Conservatives. A lot of people have described them as kind of borrowed votes, as in just for this kind of because it was the Brexit election. It wasn't necessarily a typical general election. It's like if there was to be another general election, then these same people will then vote for Labour again. It was just because of the fact that Labour didn't have it. So I guess the question is, in your opinion, what is the future of the Labour Party, for example, in terms of the direction? Do you think it's going to kind of, under Corbyn, it took a drastic shift towards the left, especially considering how Tony Blair took it slightly more centre? So do you see it going back to that centre? Do you think it's going to stay left, or so? What's your take on that, basically?
Yeah. Well, my take on it is fundamentally, look, Labour Party is a party which actually came into existence to be in power. So we need to look at how do we make sure we come into power, and we are here for a purpose when you're in power, and we should deliver on those. Yeah. Now, this idea of moving more to the left, more to the center, or to the right, etc., I think that does fluctuate. It's no big deal. Long as your core values you remain sincere to, you should adjust yourself to be more successful. Like I said, the purpose is to get to power. Otherwise, why are you here? You're not here for protesting. Yeah? And I think the leadership we're going to get will do their best. I think it's an important time for Labour is to learn. We must learn, why people did not give their trust to us. And we need to adjust ourselves, and we need to bring unity in our ranks. And I feel this election actually will provide that. We're already seeing now that actually we're moving in the sort of right direction. I think the leadership will strengthen the party. We already, as a party, are very powerful actually. Conservative Party can't match us. We are the biggest political force in Europe. There's no political party bigger than us. Yeah. So once that whole force lines up in the same direction and then turns as a machine, Conservatives can't hold on. We will take the power from them. Yeah. And once we take that power, we'll make a difference. We'll then be linked more close to the people so they trust us. So I think it's a good opportunity for us now to take good stock of ourselves, pick ourselves up, go forward, and take the power at the next election. I think we can do it.
I think you've supported Keir Starmer quite publicly. You also nominated Emily Thornberry.
Yeah.
A lot of Corbynites are actually going and supporting Rebecca Long-Bailey.
Yes.
So what is your...
Why I've done all that?
Yeah. well, the question is, who do you... Is it
well,
too cheeky to ask?
Well, first of all, for me, all candidates are Labour candidates. So I don't care too much like that. What I needed to do was go through the process and see if one for myself, who I think can deliver this victory which we need. For me, delivering victory is probably the number one thing now. We had 4 defeats. We can't keep on having defeats. Yeah. My second point, which was important to me, was that the members, like I said, we have such a large political force. They have a good choice. So I listened very carefully to every single one of the leadership candidates, observed them in hustings, observed them in their videos, observed them under interviews, etc. And I went through scientifically, actually, myself, to eliminate and then come with what I'm left with. And that person was Keir Starmer. He basically ticks more than others. He's more finished product, I think. But then I nominated Emily, and the reasoning behind that was simply to give members a more choice. And I felt Emily, as an individual, again has got a long track record. She is probably the most experienced woman candidate we have. For her not to go through to the next round won't be right, won't be fair. So this question of fairness, which was driving me then. So I then lent my vote. I was the 22nd, which was the requiring line to cross her over for this reason, so that we end up with a good choice for members, so they can then listen to these candidates and then basically cast their vote. So for the choice diversity, I did that. But when I did it, I made it clear that actually my personal choice is Keir Starmer.
Okay, speaking about diversity, I guess I think actually you're not eligible to be Prime Minister because you weren't born in the UK. I think that's a rule. I don't know, but
I think you can.
I think if you're a Catholic, you're not.
Oh right.
So being a Muslim is not a problem.
Okay.
Even with the king, I think there's an issue.
Not for you personally.
Thaqib, I think you're getting confused with America.
Yeah.
In America, you have to be born in. Anyways, I don't know. I just remember.
Well, look. First of all, I'm not running to be a prime minister.
Yeah. The key question was not about you. I think. When do you think Britain and when do you think, if ever, the UK will actually be ready for a brown Prime Minister?
Look, it's difficult to predict. This is the honest answer. But look, to say, can it happen? The answer has to be yes. And the reason is, Lisa is now running to be the leader of the Labour Party. Sajid Javed ran to be the leader of Conservative Party.
But I guess a lot of people say that the people who go down kind of this route, especially on a Muslim level, they're people who've completely kind of given up anything, or completely sold out.
Again, we need to be careful making these judgmental sort of statements. Who is successful? Allah knows best. And where one ends, Allah knows best. Yeah. For me, I think it's possible. Whether it will happen in my lifetime or my children's lifetime, I don't know. Politics is a funny game. You don't know what's around the corner. All you need is ultimately, if we have a leader who is from a colour background in Conservative Party or in the Labour Party, the chances are pretty good to be the Prime Minister. That's where the route is, isn't it?
I had another question, kind of going away from some of the Labour work, but more specifically to your work that you've done as a parliamentarian within the APPG for British Muslims. I guess first and foremost, just maybe just give a bit of introduction for those people who are unaware of what the APPG is, and some of the achievements that you guys have done, specifically on the definition of Islamophobia. And what are your thoughts on it as well, personally?
Well, the APPG is basically a system which operates as different organizations of MPs coming together of their interests. And we have one which is for the British Muslims. So they do some great work. And one of the things we realized was over the last decade or so, this increase of Islamophobia. It's been around for a long, long time, but there's been an increase which has been happening. So what is it that we do? And we then concluded that actually we need to have a definition, because if you don't have a definition, then how do you actually measure it? Because you can't be all over the show. And then we did a lot of good work with some good experts, both in the academic field point of view, from legal field point of view as well, and from the Muslim community themselves as well. And then we came up with a definition which we thought needs to be fairly simple. It doesn't cover everything, but that's fine. As long as you cover 90 plus, I think it's usually good enough far as I'm concerned. I hope you gathered that I'm not someone who goes for perfection. I'm always happy with the good as well. So we got that.
Because there's still people who criticize it and say that it's too similar to
racism. But look, I think, does it cover us for 90%? And if it does, great. Yeah? Because there's no perfection. Because whatever definition you'll come up with, there'll be someone who will not be happy. And Muslims are also so diverse, in so many different ways. Again, it makes it that difficulty more. So we've made a good progress on it. Almost all the political parties have actually accepted the definition. And almost about 800 to 900 organizations have accepted this as well. Overwhelming number of Muslims have also accepted the definition as well. So let's try to line up behind it. So people like Brother Amin, etc., they have issues with it. And I say to them, look, forget it. We've looked at your arguments. But together we came with some answer. Let's line up now behind that. Almost taking you back to Jeremy Corbyn idea. Look, you may have had it, you may not have voted it, but you got that. Let's go forward. So going forward, basically, the issue really is the government. And the government, I think I'm being very straightforward. I think government's problem is that they have a huge problem with Islamophobia within their own ranks. And not only within their own ranks, but within their leadership. So they are dragging their feet because they know it means trouble for themselves. And I think they shouldn't look for an easy way. They should actually look for the right way if they're a proper government. And at the moment, what they're trying to do is look for an easy way out of this problem. They know there's a problem. It's not that they don't know. But what they're trying to do is find an easy way instead of trying to go for the correct way. And we should actually line up as a Muslim community. We should build alliances with others as well. And we should really push through this definition. And then I think it will go a long way dealing with the problem that we're facing. It's just not acceptable, Many of our young people whose futures are lying ahead of them having to face this discrimination. It is not fair. It's not fair for the country that you're basically not making most of all the talent that you have. So in all sorts of different reasons, good, decent people need to line up behind this and really pile the pressure on the government that they buckle and they accept this, and then we move forward for a better society, which again I think would be good.
I guess I have a closing question for you, which is what advice do you give to Muslim youth especially, but also Muslim communities, organizations, especially in this kind of environment of rising Islamophobia, rising xenophobia? The far right seems to be getting stronger. We've just voted in a prime minister, who I'm getting confused with America again.
It's because you're American, Thaqib.
We've just voted in a prime minister who calls niqabis that they look like letterboxes. So a lot of people are feeling very kind of disenfranchised with the whole political system. I've even spoken to some people who say that they should make hijrah and they should move to a different country, and it's time to go back to Pakistan.
Well, look, my answer is that we actually need to be strong, and we need to look outward, not inward, and we need to work even harder now to build alliances. Britain is a great country with great opportunities. You got an individual sitting in front of you who came to this country, who was adopted, who had not had a single pound in my pocket. I am the only Muslim in the world who has served in the European Parliament in the front bench, and I'm serving now in the British Parliament on the front bench. So much progress I was able to make. So that possibility is there for all our young people. If I came to this country with very little of knowledge, money, family background and all that, if I can make so much progress, they can do better than that. And the question we were saying, they can be the prime minister in this country. And that requires for us to look outward. It requires to aim high. It requires for us to work hard. That's what we need to do. We can actually make Britain an even better place, and where we can tighten the grip on this by those who are racist, those who have a narrow mind, those who are backward, pushing them away, really, or even helping them to open up, to understand. That is our job. Let's get on with it.
I nearly thought you said make Britain great again. Although I think it's greater than it ever was before. So it's greater than Empire Days for sure.
We welcome you, Thaqib. So.
But yes, we really appreciate your time. People can find you on Twitter at Afzal for Gorton. Are there any other channels, avenues?
Well, I have a Facebook page as well. I would love people to be engaged, help. And if anybody is interested in politics, I'm more than happy to meet them, more than happy to help them, guide them, advise them. Like I said, I run different opportunities, both in my office. I try to take young people on for a short period. Just say, come and have experience, to give you a flavor. And then guiding. I do lots of people. I guide people who are sort of thinking of progressing.
Does that mean you'll give me a job?
I didn't make an offer of job yet. If you're good enough, you'll get a job. No discrimination, all right?
Thaqib's got this long-running joke that apparently I'm unemployed, basically.
And unemployable.
Whoa!
You can follow. We'll discuss. Actually, last episode we were talking about Assad and how he's also unemployable in that Syria Legal Development Project episode. But thank you very much again for your time. People can follow us on at the Middle West PC on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can also email us on middlewestpc@gmail.com. We're always looking for feedback, and we do act on it. A lot of the questions that actually we ask are actually sent in by listeners. So we really appreciate that. And you can listen to us on Pocket Cast, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
Even in your dreams, just close your eyes and hear us.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.